Hello, everyone, and welcome to The Real Steel, where we talk all things Pittsburgh Steelers. No BS, just the real steel. I'm your host, Jeff. I'm joined by my co-host, Polt. And the Pittsburgh Steelers dropped a tough one to the Philadelphia Eagles this weekend, 27-13. Brings the Steelers to 10-4. But on the bright side, Steelers did clinch a playoff spot. So we have some good, probably a lot more bad to talk about in this episode. But that's what we're going to do. It's the real steel. It's no BS. So, Paul, initial reactions after that game, because I think we both knew it wasn't one that we felt pretty good about or thought we were going to win, but it didn't seem good in the moment.
Yeah, no, I mean, we both kind of talked about how it would be a tough game for us to win, especially without George Pickens. And I don't know, even when you go into the game expecting that, it still becomes pretty hard to swallow during the game. And I know we both were struggling with it, but at the same time, we both kind of knew this was going to happen. And really what we expected happened. We just got bullied on both sides of the ball, and it is what it is.
Yeah, I mean, it really tough showing, right? The Eagles are a really good team. We know that. They're I mean, quality NFC Championship team, Super Bowl team. I mean,
Yeah.
if you watched any of the other games this week, you heard the commentators or you heard the sports media say that there were perhaps two Super Bowl previews in the late window in which we played. It was Buffalo and the Lions, and then there was a little bit of rumbling about the Steelers and the Eagles, not as much as the Bills Lions game, but
Yeah.
you know it. I think George Pickens being out certainly played a big role in this. We're going to talk about the officiating. Of course, that didn't cost us the game, but I think the officiating in this game was absolute dog shit, to be honest with you. And the fact that what haunts me the most is that with 11 minutes left in the game, we never got the ball. So it was kind of a boring game too, right? Like it didn't really seem like we even had the chance to do much. And so,
Yeah.
that was one that kind of bit a little bit, particularly like that last part of the game. And you know me, I was really frustrated about that and kept saying 11 minutes or 10 minutes and 30 seconds. I can't get that out of my head. It's tough when you can't stop a team that starts on their own 3-yard line and drives the whole way to ice the game with 11 minutes. So it's where I sit.
Yeah, I mean, it was a tough one, and it started really tough, to be honest with you. Early in the game, I wasn't even paying attention because the game wasn't worth paying attention to. We had the ball 5 times in the first quarter, and we had 4 3-and-outs. Actually, we had 5 3-and-outs, but got lucky, I think. Or maybe it was, I guess, technically 4. And we got lucky with the fumbled that was the fumbled punt, I think, that we got the easy field goal off of. I mean, other than that, I think we had 3 of those 5 drives had negative yards total on net yards on the drive. -11 on the third drive, -8 on that field goal drive, and -5 on the last drive of the first quarter. The first 2 totaled 5 yards combined. So we were -19 yards total in the first half. I mean, that's just pitiful, and I don't know how you can really expect to win when you have -19 yards in a quarter in the game. This is, like we said, this is a good team. We struggle in Philadelphia, and when you come out slow like that, it's a really hard hill to climb, especially when the Eagles come out and have a 54-yard field goal drive to start off the game and then a 70-yard touchdown drive later in the first quarter.
Yeah, I mean, it felt like we were getting torn up, but if you look at the score, it wasn't necessarily that way. I mean, we forced those 2 fumbles pretty early in the game, both in the first quarter. The challenge was, though, after that first fumble, we were inside Eagles territory. I think we were at, their 40-something yard line and couldn't come away with anything. And then when we forced the second fumble off of that punt, we had the ball on the 11-yard line. And what happens is we get penalties that back us up and we find ourselves kicking a field goal, right? That whole drive, like you said, lost yards. It lost 8 total yards. And so that was tough to watch that happen. But at that point in the game, it was only 3-3 once we notched our field goal in, and it felt like we could have been down a lot worse. But then you said the Eagles scored a touchdown and they scored a second touchdown too. But at one point, we were able to put together one good drive in the second quarter that was capped off by the Pat Freiermuth touchdown. Like, that drive felt really good. 11 plays, 70 yards. Forced a 3-and-out, and then we got another field goal on the board. So we were down 4 at halftime. The score didn't really get away from us. what sucked is that it feels like the Pittsburgh Steelers are a second half team,
Yeah.
and they were not a second half team at all in this game.
Well, I'm glad you kind of took us down that route because I was very doom and gloom there about that first quarter. And the first quarter was pretty bad, but you're right.
Yeah.
We left the first quarter down 10-3, which really isn't that bad. And then we give up one early in the second, another touchdown, and we're down 17-3. And you think, oh, I mean, I think I might have texted you, it's over. Like I
Mhm.
didn't think there was any chance we could come back. But you're right, we did have that really good drive in the second quarter, the 11 play 70-yard drive, almost 6.5 minutes, kept the ball out of their hands,
Mhm.
and we really turned the tide. I mean, if you look at it, the first quarter, like you said, I felt we got shredded, but maybe we didn't. In the second quarter, we gave up that 45-yard touchdown drive, and then their next two drives, they lost yards, -14 and -8, and the second one being the end of the half. So we really dominated the second quarter. We outscored them 10 to nothing or 10-7 in the second quarter. So being down four at half, I actually felt like we had a chance, but we also knew that our offense and what we were doing in the first half barely like I think even getting close to 100 yards, it just wasn't sustainable for an entire game, especially with their high-powered offense. And it turns out that was the case, especially when you only have the ball twice in the entire second half.
Yeah, from a production standpoint, I mean, we got our asses totally handed to us, right? I mean,
Yeah.
the Eagles were all over us in terms of total yards, 270 pass yards to 107 pass yards for the Steelers. Eagles had 131 on the ground. We had 56. What kills me, what stands out to me so much, just like a sore thing above everything else, the Eagles possessed the ball for twice as much as we did for 40 minutes, and we possessed the ball for 20 minutes. I keep saying it's crazy or it's wild, but it really is. There were 5 total drives in the second half of this game. 5 drives. The Eagles had a 13 play drive that was a field goal for 7 minutes.
Yeah.
We had a 4 play drive where we fumbled it. Then the Eagles had another 13 play, 7 minute drive for a touchdown. We had a 7 play, 3.5 minute where we stopped at the 47-yard line or something, and Mike Tomlin chose to punt it.
Yeah.
And then the Eagles had 21 plays, 88 yards, 11 minutes, 10 minutes and 29 seconds to kind of end the games. So 5 drives, 3 from the Eagles. To think that the Steelers possessed the ball twice in the second half, that's ridiculous. And that's a weakness for us, right? That if this could continue to happen, I mean, the hole that the Steelers get themselves into a lot is the too little, too late game.
Yeah.
And when you don't even possess the ball more than 2 times in the second half, and of course we didn't get any points from either of those. Now, unfortunately, we were down at the 25 or 26-yard line where Najee fumbled it. First fumble of the season for Naj, which sucked because I think a lot of people are pointing at him as having a terrible game here, which he didn't have a good game, but I don't think he's the one to blame. And then, the 7 play drive for 24 yards where Mike Tomlin chose not to go for it. So
Yeah, I mean,
that's your game summary.
yeah, we're not a high-powered offense either. So if you don't possess the ball, we usually don't do very well offensively because we have to possess the ball in order to score. Like we need long drives. That's how we've been for years, and that's how we've been this year. We don't, especially without George Pickens, we're not going to hit the deep shots. But it's kind of crazy. You talked about that first drive for the Eagles coming out of the half where they went 7 minutes, 47 yards for that field goal in 13 plays. We're only down. It's halfway through the third quarter, and we're only down 20-13. Like we're in the game, and then we come out and we have the 31-yard pass to Calvin Austin, and then a 6-yard run and a 7-yard run. We're down to the 26. I mean, we're in business. Like we're about to score to make it an even closer game. Maybe tie it up, and everything seems good. And then all of a sudden, just that botched toss play to Najee really just completely ended the game for any chance we had. Because from there, our defense gave up a really long drive, another 6.5 minute long drive, 13 plays, 74 yards, and I mean the rest was history. I mean that was it. Once they went up 27-13, you knew it was going to be hard to come back. And I mean, like you said, they possessed the ball for 13 and a half plus 10 and a half, like 25 minutes of the 30 minutes in the second half. I
Yeah.
mean, that's crazy in an NFL football game. And it just kind of shows you, I think, that the defense was tired. I think the offense barely did anything in the first half, and obviously the time of possession was really really skewed. And I think the defense just kind of fell apart and couldn't get off the field.
Yeah, and again, the Eagles are a really, really good team. So
Yeah,
this is this to me is kind of a wake up game for the Steelers.
yeah,
There's a lot that went wrong for us, and cleaning up a few things, fixing a few things. Right, if we get these overreactions to the side, including like how both of us overreacted, like season's over and TJ Watt's out for the season, which hopefully and likely isn't the case.
yeah.
Um, get those out of the way because this is a little bit of a wake up call. You have some really tough games down the stretch. We'll preview the Ravens game that we have on Saturday, which is for the AFC North if we win that game, and we could be playing a Chiefs team without Patrick Mahomes, and then you could wrap up against the Bengals team, and there is a reasonable chance that you could win two or all three of these next games. So we need to relax a little bit, but. Sorry, you were going to say something.
Well, I was just going
Go
to say,
ahead.
I think even though we talked about how this was going to be a hard game last week, and we went into the game not really expecting a lot, especially without Pickens. I think why it was so hard for us to swallow was we were in the game at the end of the third quarter, or towards close to the end of the third quarter. We had that drive in the red zone basically to go tie it up, and then from there we get the ball one more time and make a dumb decision with it when we get the ball. I think that's just what it was. We saw that we had a chance to beat this really high-powered Eagles team, or at least be closer, and the fact that we weren't able to do that, I think, is where some of our overreaction comes from. It was just pure frustration, I think. Just it seems like we just gave the game up.
Heck yeah. I mean, here's your stat of the week. 2008 Pittsburgh Steelers lost in Philly, won the Super Bowl. 2016, we got pumped at the Linc. We went to the AFC Championship game. So, it's maybe a wake up loss. And again, I don't want to also say, oh, we're the best team in the NFL and we're Super Bowl bound. I think this definitely showed a lot of flaws.
Yeah.
But I think, we made the playoffs, and I think we have a real chance at winning a playoff game this year where I don't think in the past we necessarily have. So,
Yeah.
and we have a good chance at a home playoff game too if we can finish out strong. So that's something to look forward to. Question I want to ask you is, George Pickens plays in this game. Is it any different? And is it any different? I think the answer is yes. But you think we
Yeah.
win this game, or you think we have? I guess we know the answer is maybe we have a better chance of winning this game. But you think that makes a significant difference?
I think it does make a significant difference. If you kind of look at how the Eagles played, they said, "Hey, you have nobody that can beat our secondary. I mean, we're just going to play man to man against you. We're going to load the box. Our D line's awesome, and we're just going to not let you run the ball." And we couldn't run the ball really at all. We had, I mean, our runners. Russell Wilson had 4 carries for 13 yards. Najee had 6 for 4. Russell had 4 for 13. Najee had 6 for 14. Warren had 4 for 12, and Cordero Patterson had 2 for 9, and Justin Fields had 1 for 8. I mean, that's just pitiful. When Russell Wilson has your second longest run, or the longest run in the game of 8 yards and 2 rushing first downs, and was second on the team in rushing with 13, you didn't run the ball very well. So I do think Pickens would have opened that up. They would have had to respect us a little bit more, and I don't know if they could have just played press man in your face and all game, because Pickens is going to win deep. They didn't believe that there was going to be a deep threat on us. We were able to get that 30-yard pass to Calvin Austin, but other than that, I mean, we didn't really do a whole lot in the passing game.
Yeah, and that was a flea flicker. So you take away that
True. Good
31-yard
point.
pass, and then Russell Wilson's looking at under 100 yards and 100
right.
under 100 yards across our whole receivers. I mean, there certainly was an attempt to spread the ball around as it has
Yeah.
been, but I got a gripe here, and we've mentioned it. I feel like the last 5 episodes, but knowing that George Pickens is out, where the hell is Mike Williams, man? This is very puzzling to me, and I don't get it. Like we both said last week, we thought that with knowing that Pickens is going to be out, Mike Williams is going to get some more attention. Do you have his snap count? Do you know how much he played?
Yeah, he was third on the team in receivers. Van Jefferson played 35. Calvin Austin played 35. Mike Williams played 15. I mean, for reference, Ben Skoranek played 10, and Scotty Miller played 10. So he only played 5 more snaps than Ben Skoranek and Scotty Miller. And we talked about, I think last week, Ben Skoranek played more than him, or maybe Scotty Miller. One of those two played more than him. I don't really get it. I thought he was finally getting into the offense last week. He had those 3 catches or 2 catches or a couple targets and looked good. And this week he goes for 2 targets, 1 catch for 15 yards. I mean, nothing to write home about. He was nowhere to be found. 15 plays on offense is crazy. I know we only had like 44 plays, but like, come on, like we know we're not. And Calvin Austin should be out there, but other than that, I mean, I think Mike Williams is better than Ben Skoranek, Van Jefferson, Scotty Miller. At least he should be, and maybe he's just not. I don't get it.
The personnel thing is a little bit weird to me. I also feel like
Yeah,
nothing against Cordero Patterson because he runs hard,
man.
but there's no reason that Cordero Patterson should be a 3 down back on certain packages or certain drives. Even if after Najee fumbles, that's Jalen Warren's game. So I had a hard time seeing Cordero Patterson get as much play time as he did too. Knowing what we have in Jalen, I was a little frustrated with that as well.
Yeah, there was just a long period there where.
John, no, not, I don't know if you heard that.
Oh, I heard that. That was funny. I was very confused. Good thing you're okay though. But I mean, I did realize that there was a situation there where I feel like Jalen Warren wasn't seen for maybe the entire third quarter. I mean, we only saw the ball one time, but I mean, Cordell Patterson only had 6 snaps, but he goes like you said. It's those stints where he'll be in for an entire drive, and it's like 4, 5, 6 plays in a row, and it's just. He's good and he's serviceable and he can do a lot of different things. But yeah, I would much rather have Jalen Warren, especially the way he's been playing the last couple of weeks, in there. I just don't get what Cordero Patterson gives you.
Yeah, me too. Okay, I don't have too much more to say about the offense. Do you want to add anything, or do you want to move to a little bit of conversation around the defense? Because I think there are some things we can definitely say here.
Yeah, the offense stunk. I mean, 17 for 56 on the ground, 14 for 22 for 128. What, 41 plays to 77? I mean, it's just bad all around. So no, I'm good.
Yeah, I mean, last remark would be the O-line sucked too. They just really did not play well.
Okay, wait, I'm glad you brought that up. I do think this is worth pointing out. I mean, we've been talking how good the O-line's been. I think really when it's been good is when we've played some of these not as good D lines. I mean, the Eagles might have the best defense, probably. I mean, not might. I think they do have the best defensive line in football. So, I mean, take that with a grain of salt, but when you start playing these better teams come the playoffs in the end of the year here, it's going to be interesting to see if our O-line can hold up.
Yeah. I agree. Okay, let's talk defense, and I want to start things off just by pulling up a stat here that I found that was tweeted out by Josh Carney that I think is really, really compelling, and speaks volumes, I think, for kind of what we witnessed. We missed 20 tackles in this game. Prior to this game, the most we had in any game was 11. So we're 2 times as many. And according to Josh Carney, 20 missed tackles in a game is the most that he's ever counted in 6 years of taking that stat. So there were some really, really bad missed tackles. And I think going into this game, if you would have given me an average in terms of the average number of missed tackles the Steelers had this season, I probably would have said, yeah, we'll see more than that because we're playing Saquon, we're playing Devontae Smith, we're playing A.J. Brown. But Saquon didn't really run us over. A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith both had over 100 yards, but it didn't feel like it was one particular player that just kept doing damage to us. It felt like no one could tackle out there.
Yeah, and it felt like, I mean, it's bad when you compound wide receivers wide open, which I feel like that happened a lot throughout the game for the Eagles. Like they were wide open, and then the first couple guys that get to him can't make the tackle. It just compounds an issue on another issue, and I feel like that, especially in the first quarter where I thought we were just shredded in our secondary. I think that really was the case. We just kept missing tackles that we haven't been accustomed to much in this season, and yeah, it's bad. 20 missed tackles in a game for an NFL football team is pretty darn bad. So I know we were missing some guys. It is definitely worth pointing out that Sean Elliott not being out there, I think, did play a large role. Calcaterra, their tight end, I mean, I think he only had 1 catch, but I think he played a little bit bigger of a role, and maybe some of these other guys were more open because they had to. I don't know. I just think they looked a little lost with KZ back there and not Deshaun Elliott. So that hurts, but there's no excuse to miss tackles. I mean, there really isn't.
Yeah. I mean, Dante Jackson got juked out of his shoes a couple times, it felt like. And
got hurt again.
And got hurt again. I mean, you look at you look at the list here of tackles, or I guess defensive stats for the Steelers, it's a little bit different. KZ's up there third and for the team with 8 total tackles. James Pierre's up there. Yeah, I mean Dante Jackson being out, Deshaun Elliott being out, definitely played a role in the secondary of this team. Now, I think we are going to see Corey Trice play next week,
Cool.
or start to get some of Corey Trice in there. Talented kid, right? At least from what we've heard, but doesn't have too many NFL snaps. And to play corner against some of these guys like Isaiah Likely or Rashad Bateman, Zay Flowers, he has a tough task ahead of him if he's getting any time in there. And we don't fully know if we're going to get Dante Jackson or Deshaun Elliott back and healthy for this next game.
Well, I was going to say that's worth pointing out though, because even if we get Dante Jackson, I don't think he's finished a game in 2 or 3 weeks. So he keeps getting hurt because I know the last 2 weeks for sure, James Pierre has to come in and has had to play a lot. And getting Corey Trice back gives us a little bit more depth, and B, maybe gives James Pierre less snaps, which I'm not saying James Pierre's played bad, but we know James Pierre's track record. I don't think he made the team this year out of camp. I mean, so he's pretty far down the depth chart here to be our number 2 guy across from Joey Porter. So I think just getting Corey Trice back would be good. Talk about tackles, though. I think that's really telling with where this game was played. I mean, Patrick Queen had 11 tackles to lead the team, and Alex Highsmith with 8 right behind him. But then when your 2 starting safeties are the tied for second with 8 tackles apiece, I think that kind of shows you that we were making a lot of plays deep in the secondary. So not very good for the defense. They really struggled and they couldn't get off the field either. I mean, what's the third down stat? Yeah, I mean the Eagles were 10 for 17 on third downs and 1 for 1 on fourth down. That's pretty. I mean, if you're going to beat a good football team, in comparison, we were 3 for 10 offensively. So if you're going to allow them to be 59% on third down, you're not going to win many football games. So that's really what accounted for the 400 total yards and the I think 71 plays or something like that. Yeah, you just can't play football like that.
Yeah, and if we go back to the secondary, where has Cam Sutton been? Like, what's the story here with Cam Sutton, and why aren't we seeing much of him? You have any insight there, or any thoughts there?
No, I'm trying to look at snap counts right now. I thought, yeah, he played 31 snaps, which is 39%. It looks like Beanie Bishop played 24, 30%. So it looks like Cam Sutton is our slot guy.
Slot corner, yeah.
James Pierre played 61%, but yeah, I guess they were playing a lot of base. Joey played 100% of the snaps. So they must have been playing a lot of base packages to shut down Saquon Barkley would be my guess.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
It just not a good showing overall by the defense. Again, I said it twice, maybe more. This is a high-powered Eagles offense that we expected to do some damage on this team.
Yeah.
But I look at this less at the score and more at just the sustainability of drives that the Eagles had. This felt like a game last season or 2 seasons ago where the defense couldn't get off the field, and then the offense doesn't do them any favors, and so it's a lose-lose situation. That's kind of how I would sum it up.
Sorry, I was just counting there because we should talk about like your favorite drive of the game, the 21-play, 88-yard drive for 10 and a half minutes of possession to end the game. I just counted out they had 7 third or fourth downs on that drive. Now, okay, maybe we should say 6 because the last one was their last kneel down. But 6 chances to get off the field for the defense, and they weren't able to. It was a 3rd and 6, a 3rd and 2, a 3rd and 13, which turned into a 4th and 1 that they did the tush push, another 3rd and 1, and then a 3rd and 2. I mean, yeah, we're just not used to seeing that nowadays. It's just that. I mean, that's half your third downs right there for the 10 for 17. You just, I don't know. You have to find a way to get off the field, and we were not able to do that.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Special teams. If we want to talk special teams really quick, Chris Boswell continuing to nail down these field goals. Did have a doink on the extra point though. That was a little bit frightening. But Tomlin had the confidence to go to him for a 49-yarder later. So 2 more field goals from Chris Boswell keeps him on the pace of needing 2 more in each of the last 3 games to tie that record of 44. I think this puts him at 38 for the season. This is really all I care about. This is the only tracker I'm thinking about. Is that record for Boss. So 6 more to tie, 7 to win. And Corliss Waitman, 5 punts for a total of 215 yards. Not a stellar day for Corliss Waitman, but I don't think it was punting that really put us in the position that we were in. I think a lot more of it falls to the other 2 sides of the team. So
no, and we did get that fumbled punt, so I mean
Yep.
that did help us there. I mean, I guess we should have mentioned that with the offense. I mean, the defense did get 2 takeaways, or defense and special teams, and we turned that into 3 points. I mean, if you're gonna beat good teams, you can't. And they won the turnover battle, but only got 3 points off of it. I mean, that's
Eagles had 1 turnover and
for
put
7.
7 points off of it.
Right,
Yeah.
so you won the turnover battle, lost the points off turnover. You gotta take advantage of those situations. So we've said that we've been very opportunistic coming into this game. We were not at all this game. So yeah, kind of the story of the game there, to be honest.
For sure. All right, we talked offense, we talked defense, we talked special teams. We're going to talk the 4th phase of this game, which is officiating. Because,
oh man,
God, Polt, that was, man, might have been one of the most one-sided officiating games I've ever seen. We haven't talked about the refs maybe since the early part of the season, so I'm giving us a little bit of a green light to go ahead and do so. I just think there were a few pretty significant plays that had a very poor outcome for the Steelers.
yeah.
The first of which the Darnell Washington block where he just put that dude on skates. Quinyon Mitchell, is that who it was?
Darius Slay was Washington.
Darius Slay.
Quinyon Mitchell
Okay.
was with Calvin Austin.
Okay, so Darnell Washington put Darius Slay on skates, blocked him all the way out of the end zone. Sure, probably a personal foul on that play for him to do that, which is fine.
Playing through the whistle.
Yeah, playing through the whistle. I mean,
he might not have known. It didn't look bad. It didn't look like it was malicious.
yeah, it didn't look malicious. He just totally just
for instance, the George
won the ball.
Pickens on the Hail Mary against the Browns, like that whole situation looked malicious. This was
Absolutely.
not anything like that. So
Yeah.
okay, sorry,
Yeah.
continue.
No. I think what happened afterwards, he had 2 punches thrown at him. Calvin Austin, of course the team scuffled around that. Calvin Austin comes in. Calvin Austin gets a punch thrown at him. What happens there? We get 2 personal fouls, one on Darnell Washington, one on Calvin Austin. So right there, the Steelers are penalized 15 yards. I think not worst case scenario. That was the worst case scenario. I think
Right.
what could have happened and still would have sucked would have been offsetting penalties in that instance.
I mean, weren't we like inside the 15 or inside the 10? I mean, I think we were like moving the ball a little bit when that happened, and that just completely set us back. I'm trying to see if I can figure it out, but
yeah, I don't even remember when.
it was definitely in a situation where we were moving the ball, and then they called that penalty, which was really, really just sucked. It kind of completely ruined the drive for us. But regardless, I mean, what's worse about that is not just the missed calls. I mean, not offsetting penalties is horrible, but you could see video evidence of the ref running in on Darnell Washington and Darius Slay, staring at it and seeing Darius Slay punch Darnell Washington. And then you can also see the refs huddling around when Quinyon Mitchell threw the punch at Calvin Austin. And this is what Alan Eck, the referee, said after the game. Quote, "No punches were observed on the field by the Eagles. There was no video evidence of punches observed by the Philadelphia Eagles, including," he said, "not by New York. New York reviewed the play and didn't see punches thrown. They were clear as day." And just the fact, like, what's New York good for if they can't find those punches? I mean, you couldn't find more obvious things. Well, actually, later in the game you could, but you couldn't find more obvious things. And I just think that horrible by the officiating in the moment, horrible by New York in the moment, and then horrible doubling down after the fact when there's very obvious video evidence proving they were wrong.
Yeah,
There's my rant.
100%. I mean, nope, you're totally right. And I think the second one that absolutely kills us is the Steelers were punting, and Jalen Carter, Eagles defensive lineman.
Hold on, can I
Go
stop
ahead.
you just to finish that? I did just find it. We were on 1st and 10 from the Philly 11.
from the
and
11.
we ended up kicking a
Was the
field goal.
field goal
That's when we were
drive.
down 3-0. So huge
Yeah.
moment in the game. Sorry, go back to Jalen
No,
Carter.
you're absolutely right. And the second significant play was when Jalen Carter swatted and gosh, I don't even know. He just
No, he threw a
totally
punch.
threw a punch right at Connor Hayward during the punt. During our punt. And what's really I think frustrating here is they called a foul. They threw a flag. They called a 15-yard penalty or personal foul on Jalen Carter. They didn't say what the implications were, but we go to commercial thinking that the Steelers get a 15-yard penalty. We get the ball back, and we'll probably be on the Eagles 35, the Eagles 40, close to that, right?
Yeah.
Definitely in a position where we can put some points on the board. We come back from the break. The Eagles have the ball. By the way, the punt went down, I think, to like the 3 or the 4-yard line.
Yeah.
Pretty good punt from where we were, right? So ball goes down to the 3 or 4-yard line. And what happens is the announcers say that the penalty was enforced on the Eagles half a distance to the goal because the altercation occurred after we had punted the ball. You go back and you watch that replay, you can see Jalen
staring at
Carter
it.
smack Connor Hayward right in the face, and then you see the ball punted probably a second after. Like there's it's not even simultaneous in how it happened. Like it happened and then we punted the ball. And what super sucks is how that ultimately played out because it got enforced as a half a distance to the goal. And when you're on the 4 and it goes down to the 2, that doesn't make a difference because your drive changes from 1st and 10 to 1st and 12. So that
Right.
really sucked for the Steelers. And that was kind of a game changing play. Again, I'm not going to go here and say that this changed the outcome of the game, or things would have happened differently, but just really poor calls in those two particular instances that I think could have changed the way points were scored.
Yeah, I mean, and I think what made it worse was when we went to commercial, they said, I think the referee said that if Steelers first down because he called
I
it
didn't
that
even
way. And
hear
I'm pretty
that.
sure it got called back during the commercial saying, no, it was a change of possession. So it goes after that. Well, and if you're watching on YouTube, I'm going to put it up there so you can see it. I mean, literally, Connor Hayward's head is back and the ball's still in the air of Corliss Waitman dropping the ball to kick it. There was no change of possession. It should have happened, given us a first, and we actually would have been like on the 30-yard line of the Eagles. And if you go back, that was the punt that Mike Tomlin did with 10 and a half minutes left that we never got the ball back from. Down by 14. So if we keep the ball, I mean, I'm not saying we're going to win the game, but the outcome of the game is completely different. So yeah, absolutely horrible officiating there. I just, there's so many angles on this one too that obviously the ball was not gone when he threw the punch. It was right off the rip. So yeah,
Yeah,
awful.
and add to it that I mean AJ Brown was pushing off Joey Porter Jr. the entire game. I even had a couple Eagles fans who noted that to me. That said AJ Brown got away with a lot of pushaways, a lot of push-offs. Joey Porter said it.
I even think there was more. You could talk about offensive holdings. Our guys were getting held the
Yeah,
entire game. But that happens every game, so it's hard to get too mad about those. But the tripping on Zach Frazier was
awful
absolutely
call,
horrible. He was fighting with the
unintentional.
guy, and he
Yeah,
fell and rolled over, and their legs clipped. Like he absolutely did not intentionally kick him. I thought that was horrible. He got thrown to the ground. I mean, terrible. And then the penalty on the field goal, where they called Montravis Adams for running into the long snapper, and said that he hit the long snapper. So I think they made the field goal, but they ended up getting a touchdown out of it because of the penalty. He
I
obviously,
think they got a field goal out of it. I think they still got a field goal,
oh, did they? Okay, if but
but still,
still, I mean, he obviously got pushed into the long snapper. That happens every week, every kick. The long snapper gets hit because the lineman pushed the defenders into the long snapper. And we've seen guys get plowed over in recent weeks on these game-winning field goals, specifically with the
yeah.
Chiefs, and they call us on that. Like, come on, it obviously looked like. I mean, you want you know the stat, but you want the stat with the refs. I mean. Let me find it. Hold on, I lost
No,
it.
I got it. I got it
Oh, you
up.
got it. Go ahead. Go ahead.
And I'm gonna read it. And I'm gonna read it right after I do something that I haven't done in a few weeks. And I'm giving my jag off right now to Alan Eck, who was the head officiator in
Yeah.
this game. The refs really sucked, man. This was a really shitty game on all sides of the ball, on watching the Steelers on all phases, watching the Eagles beat us, and watching
Yeah.
the refs beat us too. Here's that stat. The home team's win percentage when Allen X Crew has been officiating over the last 4 years is over 70%. 2021, 2022, 70%. 2023 is 81%. 2024 through this year is over 71%.
Terrible.
The baseline here is that the home win percentage around the league, across the entire league, was never higher than 56% in any of those 4 years. So that's your baseline stat. I think this is ridiculous. Call it a coincidence, call it whatever, call us biased Steelers fans, call us ref haters, but I think there's a little bit of validity in all this stuff. So that's just me.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. I was considering just doubling down and also giving them my jag off
Do
of the
it.
week
Double
because
jag.
they sucked. No, I'll just give it to somebody else. I'm gonna give it to Najee Harris. I think it's very deserving. I thought he didn't run very well, 6 for 14, and that fumble was just a killer. I'm not blaming him for the loss, but that fumble was absolutely a killer in our game. And I mean, they're giving the fumble actually to Russell Wilson. I'm seeing here. Definitely Najee Harris. It was a great pitch. I don't know what he was doing. He was looking upfield trying to make a cut. I get it, but you got to secure the ball at first and foremost. And obviously, that was our chance to keep. Like I said, we could have tied the game there and fumbling the ball. I know first fumble of the year. Najee's been really good, but this one he just didn't play his best. So I'm going to give it to Najee Harris. I think Mike Tomlin's also kind of deserving if you want to give it to him. The refs are the ultimate losers in this game, but yeah.
Yeah, I still think refs should be able to get fined for their performance. That would be awesome. I think it's very deserving in certain senses. Yeah, I think one thing just to point out there with Naj and particularly with the fumble is we'll go back to it, but we got to stop running them toss plays, and I don't know if that's ever going to stop with Arthur Smith. He seems to love them, and I should start counting them each week or see if someone on X has been tallying them up. But
there's a lot.
They're not conducive to setting up a high-powered offensive drive. And even in our first few drives of the game, it felt like we were running a lot early and it wasn't successful. And I don't know why they didn't switch things, but
run pass. That's what we resorted to last week.
And when it works, it works. And when it doesn't work, man, we crash and burn. And we sure did crash and burn. But anyways, we're going to move past it. Let's find a bright spot. I'm going to give a balls of steel right now, and it might be who you want to give it to. So
probably.
If it is, double down. But I'm going to give mine to TJ Watt.
You have to.
TJ Watt was probably the shining star in this game for the Steelers. 7 total tackles, 2 sacks. One of those was a tackle for loss. And he was just all over the field. TJ Watt, a force to be reckoned with, whenever he's on the field. So I hope to hell that, we don't see TJ Watt out for more than a game or a couple games. Fortunately, he himself has said that it was twisted ankle, or he rolled his ankle. Yep. And so nothing negative in the MRI I guess nothing bad coming up in the MRI, meaning that it was negative. X-rays turned out to be all good there for TJ Watt, but hopefully we see him back on the field soon. Just MVP, man, defensive player of the year.
He's the odds-on favorite right now. So
yeah,
I mean,
and he's 1 sack off the lead in the NFL right now. So
yeah, I mean, I'm gonna double down with you as well. TJ Watt. I mean, it feels like there was really no bright spots on the team, but when you have perennial All-Pro at tackle saying that was a long day on an island with TJ Watt, that was Lane Johnson after the game.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, you had an impact. And I also want to point out the players that have recorded 11.5 sacks and 6+ forced fumbles through 14 games over the last decade. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 of them. TJ Watt's 2 of them, 2019 and this year. So just wanted to point that out. TJ Watt, although his sack numbers might be down, he is still having a huge impact. That peanut punch, man, he has that thing mastered. He is so good at that. And I don't know where we'd be without TJ Watt. I said last week that George Pickens was our most important player now. I think I stand by that, especially after this past week, but we really could use TJ Watt. Yeah, like you said, low ankle sprain. He didn't leave in a boot. They said he wasn't really limping. He's calling it a twisted ankle. I really do think he will be able to participate in this upcoming game.
Yeah, I hope so. It's a big one. Um, onwards and upwards. Do you want to close anything out with this game, or move on to the Ravens?
I think we move on, but we move on to the injury report real quick.
Okay, what do you got?
I think it's worth mentioning. So you said Deshaun Elliott. I think he's probably out. It sounds like Larry Ogunjobi's probably out. But Pickens and TJ. So I had a question for you here. I guess Mike Tomlin didn't roll out Pickens, Ogunjobi, Elliott, Dante Jackson, Justin Fields, or TJ Watt. They're all
Mm-hmm.
questionable with
Mm-hmm.
partial participation. So maybe they all play. Maybe some of them play. How do you feel about this upcoming week? Would you play somebody who's not 100% in this upcoming game against the Ravens, or would you try to hold people out to get fully healthy for the playoff run now that we did clinch the playoffs?
Somebody, meaning, do you have a player in mind, or do you have kind of all these guys in mind?
I'd say three of
Generally
them are who I
speaking.
really care about, but generally speaking, but specifically Pickens, TJ Watt, and Deshaun Elliott.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really, really great question. I feel like I could honestly throw it back at you. I don't really have a firm answer. I think I can say I saw George Pickens moving a lot in practice today, and doesn't look like the hamstring's bothering him.
Good.
I think what does Mike Tomlin say? We'll let the quality of his participation be our guide in terms of
Yeah,
whether or not they're going to play. I know this wasn't what you asked,
it's okay.
but I think George Pickens has a good chance of playing, and I think that's the most important one to have in there.
Yeah,
Knowing what our offense just did / couldn't do, and how stagnant they were, I think George Pickens, even if he's not 100%, I think you sprinkle him in, and even if it's on a snap count or something like that, I think that, to answer your question, is you play him if he feels like he can play in some capacity, even if he's not 100%. TJ Watt, I think, is challenging just because I don't know the complete severity of his injury. We could be just getting smoke and mirrors.
yeah.
All we heard was Mike Tomlin, like you said, say that, he's not in a boot. He was walking around the facility without a limp. But what does that actually mean? TJ Watt is going to be extremely, extremely valuable to us. Not that George Pickens isn't, but I think it's a scale of the injuries. And George Pickens has already had, 10, 12 rest days. And TJ Watt might be coming off this, and we can't afford to lose TJ Watt later in the
Yeah.
season. I also think that, yeah, we've talked at lengths about how important TJ Watt is and what our record is when we don't have him. But we now have a healthy Alex Highsmith. We have a really, really good star in Nick Herbig, and we
Yeah.
have Preston Smith. So it's not like we're super, super stretched thin there. And so to me, yeah, we're going against the Ravens, but that's not as important to have TJ Watt play. I think it's more important to have George Pickens. As far as Dante Jackson goes,
And Deshaun
I don't know.
Elliott.
And Deshaun Elliott, yeah, I mean, we saw that. Well, Deshaun Elliott's not on the injury report.
Oh, cool. Maybe he's
Um,
okay.
so the injury report is just the four guys that you mentioned: George Pickens, Dante Jackson, T.J. Watt, and Justin Fields. I guess he kind of got an abdomen or something in that play that he ran, and then DeMarvin Leal is still on IR. But good to see that. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe that means Deshaun Elliott is playing. I'm not entirely sure. But
No,
I don't
that's
know.
a
Does
good
that help?
answer.
Is that an answer?
No, that's a good answer. I came into this thinking that my opinion was if you win this game, you win the division, right? And there's no more questions asked. You're guaranteed a home playoff game. And I think you go out and you put everything on the line for this game, and you make, if Pickens is close, you have him play. And I don't think Pickens would turn that down. I know you risk, for the future, but it's great to win the division, especially beating the Ravens. TJ Watt, I felt the same, but I think you kind of did convince me that maybe it isn't. Maybe he is worth saving because of our depth at the position and how good Highsmith and Herbig have been this year. So yeah, maybe you don't, but I think that George Pickens, if he's like 90%, even like 85, I think I'm
Yeah.
throwing him out there because our offense is so much different
Even
without
if
him
he's a
on the
decoy.
field.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. And the Ravens defense has been a lot better the last couple of weeks. I just don't know if we can win the game without George Pickens, and that's just
Yeah.
point blank how I feel.
Yeah. Then again, though, you do bring up the other side of the coin, though, right? Like, if we win this game, we lock in probably that 3 seed,
Right.
no matter what. Like 3 seed, I think, at worst. And at that point, you can kind of rest people, right?
That's
I
what I'm
mean, you can,
saying.
and we do have that 10 day break probably. Is that what it
Yeah.
is until we play the Bengals? So, um, yeah, that is it. I think you dress TJ and you see where things go. Is probably what I would do. Um,
Yeah. I
in
like
all
that.
honesty, but yeah. So okay, let's move to this game and let's preview this game because the Pittsburgh Steelers have won 8 of the last 9 against the Baltimore Ravens, including our win this season, the 18-16 win in Pittsburgh. As you mentioned, this is a game that we can win the AFC North if we come out on top here. Ravens are 9-5; they're 4-2 at home. This is a game on Saturday, by the way, because we have that Christmas game Wednesday, the 25th, and so they're giving us at least a little bit of an extra day in that sense to make it a 4 day
Yeah.
break. So playing Saturday and Wednesday instead of playing Sunday and Wednesday. So tough draw for the Steelers here. I mean, it looks like everyone's kind of leaning the Ravens. They're 6 point favorites right now. And they're what, two minus 270 in terms of money line odds to win the game. So Steelers are
Yeah.
pretty heavily pretty heavy underdogs here.
Yeah. I mean, they are, and this
Sorry, I
is
had to hiccup. I had to stop.
No, you're good. Yeah, 6 point favorites is a lot. I mean, it is at their barn. And it is hard to play in Baltimore, but we've had some success there in recent years. I don't think we did we win there last year? Yeah, I think we did.
We did,
So
yeah.
yeah, okay. So I
The
mean, yeah,
last time we lost out of that 8 out of the 9 was actually in Pittsburgh. It was a 16-14 loss in 2022, December of 2022. So
okay.
we have won the last, what is that? 1, 2, 3, 4 games in Baltimore. Yeah, we're 4 in a row. Last
Okay.
4.
Nice. I mean, but they're coming in hot. They're coming in with something to prove. They know that this game is big for them. If you didn't know, I was doing the little playoff machine predictor thing on ESPN. I believe the Steelers own the tiebreaker with the Ravens. So if they beat us and then we end the season after the last 2 games with the same record, I believe the Steelers still win the division because of a record versus common opponents. So the Ravens really, really, really need this win. I mean, obviously they don't clinch if they don't get it. So they're going to come in very, very hungry and ready to go. Go over the stats. We went over a couple weeks ago, but this offense is really good. Third in the league in scoring, averaging 30 a game. They're third in passing yards and second in rushing yards. So potent offense, especially after last week with the Eagles. Defensively, they're playing better, but they're still not that great. 22nd overall, giving up 24 points a game. First in rushing yards allowed, so another tough game for us to run, but 31st in the pass. So that's where I really think George Pickens becomes a really big key to this game. I keep saying really, but he is a big key there because of that 31st ranked pass defense. So hopefully he can make some noise if he gets in the game. I do want to point out we did some bold predictions last week. You said Boswell would make 3 field goals. He made 2. So good try. You were close. I actually was right this time. I said Saquon Barkley he would be held under 100 yards. That did come true.
Yeah, he was kind of hurt though.
He had 65. He was hurt. I don't think he was hurt. He had 65 yards. That's under 100. And I also was going to say no touchdown because I did that for Derrick Henry. He also didn't have a touchdown. So kind of got that one right.
Yeah.
I think this week I'm going to go with Lamar Jackson throws 2+ interceptions.
2+. Wow. Okay. Any inkling for who's going to get one? Don't go Minka.
No, not Minka. I think Joey Porter Jr. gets one.
Okay.
And then I could
like that.
see maybe a Cam Sutton or maybe like a Patrick Queen on an underneath route.
I love it. I'm going to double down for my bold prediction last week, if that's okay.
Sure.
I'm going to go 3 Chris Boswell field goals again because, and I'm going to, I'm going to tie that in with, I think the under is going to hit in this game. The under right now is currently at 44.5, which I think is notoriously high for what we know happened in these games. It's going to be a cold game, 30, probably around freezing. Weather, I mean, looks good other than being cold, but the last games against the Ravens, I don't think have cracked 40.
No.
I'm looking back here all the way back to 2020, November of 2020, it looks like was the last time that this game cracked 40 points. So I think this is going to be a field goal heavy game. I think Chris Boswell is going to notch in 3, and he had 6, by the way, the last time we played the Ravens. So I think he's going to get 3 here, and I think the under is going to hit, and I think the Steelers have a pretty good chance. I think this is an even game on paper, actually. I think Steelers have a chance to bounce back. It's a really, really important game for us, and I think we know that. One stat I want to give you really quick is We've played 7 games under Mike Tomlin where it was guaranteed that the Steelers could win the division with a win, and we're 6-1 in those games. 3 of those have come against Baltimore, and we're 3-0 in all those games. So that was in 2008, 2016, and 2017 was against Baltimore.
Yeah.
We're good in those games. We're good in those instances. This is a tough game, a very, very tough game, but I think we have a good chance. So you got a score prediction?
Yeah, your stat there didn't help me. 2020, last time it went over. I actually have my prediction. I'm going to stick with it going over 24-23 Steelers.
Okay.
So that is 47 points. I think it is also worth noting we had a very negative episode here. We did clinch the playoffs even with that loss. We did get some help last week. So we are in the playoffs and we will be playing in January. So that's pretty cool. And hopefully we can win the division this week.
Heck yeah. So we'll talk more about that next episode. I also think it's worth noting, we play on Saturday, then we got Sunday, Monday, Tuesdays, Christmas Eve right before the
True.
Chiefs. So we haven't fully talked about our plans to release our next episode and when that's going to come. So TBD, stay close to YouTube or Spotify or Apple Podcasts, whatever you guys are listening to us or watching us on. And we may not have an episode before that Chiefs Christmas Day game and maybe double down afterwards, but we'll figure it out. And let's hope that the Steelers are onwards and upwards to clinching the AFC North.
Let's hope we're the kings of the North the next time we talk.
For sure. All right. Well, thank you everyone for listening. We appreciate it, and we'll talk to you next time.
Thanks, everyone. Peace.